allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Williams is not gonna make it this morning. I hadn't heard from Fort White if there's going to be here or not, but maybe they'll give a few minutes to show up. We'll go ahead and proceed. All right. Let's talk about the water line going to Fort White. So we got some updates on it. Good news, maybe?
Actually, Chairman Board, I would like to make a small adjustment to the agenda, if it's okay. I'd like to introduce Mr. Grady Williams. He is the utility attorney that we have under contract now for the county. I kind of wanted to bring that out to everyone's attention.
Thank you. Mr. Grady, we appreciate you being here and look forward to working with you. He's gonna represent the county and utility authority with anything.
And you guys too.
Everything?
And the committee too.
And the committee, right, yeah.
If I may, while we're doing introductions, because some of you haven't met Brian Roche, some of you have, but Brian Roche is heading up our water wastewater side of things at NFPS now. So Brian brings a lot of experience from the Jacksonville Electric Authority, where he worked on the water wastewater side over there in Jacksonville.
Welcome aboard. How you doing?
Now,
Okay.
back to the original agenda. Yes, sir. So the plan is to hopefully have this out for bid either tomorrow or Friday. That is the plan. Mr. Ricky's provided us everything that we need. We've got the cost estimates. We've got the specifications revised. Myself, Chad Williams, and purchasing have been looking it over, ensuring the scope of work, the inspectional scopes, everything's going to meet the criteria. So the plan is for hopefully tomorrow or Friday.
Okay.
Come back next time. My head on the chopping block, I know. Dead man walking. I got it.
Do you want to talk about the financing part of it here, where the estimate come in?
Mr. Ricky?
Last year we did an estimate early on. I think it was, the construction cost was somewhere in the neighborhood of 5.9 million. The current, cost estimate that I just shared, and I believe I printed it out and left it on the printer. Somebody else got a picture in front of me. But I believe the current estimate based on the final issue for bid plans is in the neighborhood of 4.9 or 4.8 million. But the difference is there's $1 million that's already been spent to pre-purchase those materials. So it's still right about where it was. So not counting for that pre-purchase, we're looking at a construction estimate around 4.8, 4.9, something like that.
All right, well, that sounds good. We're on track for that. Any questions on the water line?
And Mike Knoll, by the way, asked if I could provide just a few suggested recommended contractors who that we've had good experience with, just to be sure they're aware of it and they're keeping their radar, especially those who have done the HDPE underground, both the boring and the trench work, because that's a specialty. And they said they have to have a specialty sub who's certified to do those joint welds and all. So we'll be providing that. So hopefully we'll get a good response.
Yeah, I hope we have more bidders on this project. It seems to, I think,
There's a lot of
construction is slowing down a little bit, so I think there's gonna be a lot more people interested in these jobs that's coming through now, hopefully.
So typically, how long would construction period be for a project of this size and type?
Overall between the bid, awarding the bid, construction, I think Ricky estimated 270 days
Well, that was from award.
from award.
From award to final completion. So that's 9 months, basically, considering they can get started right away with the pre-purchase material. Probably it'll streamline the submittal process for a lot of that, but there will be submittals needed for the specialty stuff, especially related to that chlorine booster station that they're gonna do. So, Yeah, you're looking at a year with, probably, with the bid period.
Those proceed, don't commit bills, first time of year.
Any questions? All right. Stacy, move on to the wastewater treatment plant in Ellisville.
Yes, sir.
In
So
line with that yet?
we,
About
actually, we started it up last Thursday.
Oh, you did?
We started, working testing. Yesterday, we started the seeding process. Obviously, with any new startup, you're going to need to tighten some flanges and adjust some belts and whatnot, so on and so forth. But that is what we are doing today. It is up, it is running. And we are in the testing period as we speak.
Construction is pretty much complete.
Construction is complete.
Right there.
Now we are doing the chemical testing.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It is up, flowing. We have started diverting, obviously, the seeding from the original 25,000 to it to start the seeding process.
So at this point right now, we should be, as soon as this testing is done, we should be at 50,000 gallon capacity
Yes, sir.
there. Available. 50,000 gallon capacity. And, where we at on the, applying for the grant for the other? Cause we know we got a project going there that we're gonna need the other 25, so where we at on that? So,
The CDBG grant has been turned in by Mr. Corbett. So we're in a wait and see mode right now till we hear back from
It's
him.
under review by DEO.
Yes.
If they find it eligible, which they probably will, we haven't seen any issues with that. They'll come out and do a site visit. Once they do the site visit, as long as there's no issues, you're pretty much guaranteed to get the funding. We did ask for a waiver to go up to $2 million. $3 million? Okay. Which we're confident based on the size of the job provider isn't going to be an issue. Of course, with the CDBG grant, once they award it, you still have to go through the environmental review process, which obviously we've been through that twice already.
Yes.
So it should be fairly streamlined. But you still have to go through the motions. So actual funding, I would say, would be about a year away.
but we have plenty of jobs to meet the demand from DEO for that.
Job provider has more than enough jobs.
Yeah.
In this afternoon, we have a meeting on a very large expansion in Ellisville that we obviously need that. Just with
DOT. I tell you, Ellisville is, looks like we got a lot fixing to happen in Ellisville here in the next couple of years. Very excited about the South Bend County. Growing pretty good. Stacy, you got anything else to add to that? or?
Not in regard to Ellisville, unless everything's moving forward. And like I said, hopefully we will be fully operational in the next couple of weeks. Once all the testing comes back from our independent lab, it's required.
Yeah. But have any questions on Ellisville?
I got, not particularly Ellisville, but still curious as to our comprehensive growth plan. We're putting in a lot of dollars in infrastructure here and yet still don't have a clear vision of where we're wanting to get to. I think some fire needs to be lit under that and get it done.
Greg, you want to speak on that?
Yep, we're pulling all that stuff together. Our goal right now is to have that done and complete by August. So that's our targeted deadline. We'll start seeing some information come out for review by Stacy, Kevin, David, from their standpoint, and anybody else that would like to comment on it. But there's a lot of moving parts in this thing, so it's a little bit difficult to kind of, you had one particular area we're concentrating on, but we got NFMIP, we got Fort White, we got Ellisville, then we added in.
You got DOT with their improvements coming in. Yeah, the goalpost seems to be moving on that as we're doing it, but, yeah.
I understand, but last year we was gonna have it. we got to move with the information we have so everybody can see where we're going. Otherwise, we're,
I agree.
Throwing darts.
You definitely need a plan in place. Forward with seeing something on that pretty quick, hopefully. North Florida Main Industrial Park wastewater treatment. Update.
Yes, sir. It is moving along really, really well. Let me see, the 19th of this month, we should have the office trailer on site. We are still working with the city to hook up our water and wastewater to their system at 90. As soon as they hook that up, we will have potable water and wastewater on site, and we'll hook the trailer up. Me and Mr. Williams, after this meeting, are actually going to go over the temporary spray field agreement. So that way Mr. Williams can make some notes, make some changes, and get back with the attorney from Mr. Warehouser. And hopefully we can have that finalized by the end of this week as well. That's, and we can release that work. Yeah. Mr. Troy is finalizing the building permit for us. He said it should be finalized next week, which will allow us to start putting things in the ground and moving further.
David. So line going to the prisons with the city owns now. Where are we at with discussion on that? Has it went anywhere? I mean, have we talked about that anymore, or what's going on with that?
The city had agreed to it in principle, but haven't gone any further than that. Originally, we were talking about the water and the wastewater line. They have made it clear they are not interested at this time in the water line, transferring ownership of the water line. They are under a consent order, but they don't seem to be in a hurry.
Not at all.
But it is something we've talked to them about. They, like I said, in concept, in theory, they would do that.
Now, when you say they're in consent order,
State has basically said they've got to do something with the wastewater line.
Or they're going to be fine.
that's what
Because it keeps breaking, it's, they describe it as a thin wall, plastic force main that just can't handle the pressure. So they're gonna either have to replace it or what? They talked about pipe bursting it. We talked about, well, if we pay for the pipe bursting, we could just turn it over to us. At what point our plant becomes operational. They seemed interested in that. But like I said, the discussions haven't moved in.
Water treatment plant at Megaplex, just to let everyone know, this is kind of more just informational. The legislative appropriation is on the governor's desk, and hopefully we will find out something in the next 30 to 45 days on whether or not it's been approved for the $5.7 million.
well, it's been approved, it's just waiting for the governor.
It's been approved. Yes, sir.
Just waiting on the governor's signature. Any discussion about, I mean, we're just waiting to go on that, so
Waiting to go to allow Mr. Bailey and them to start doing design permit.
Typically, once he signs it, then it'll go to a department, in this case, DEP. DEP will probably issue contracts in August. So the actual paperwork won't be finished until August, September.
And that was how much money?
That'll be 5.7.
5.7. All right. What about the Springs grant update?
You'll see in your packet on the 2 pages or 3 pages I printed off.
Yeah.
This is an updated White River Water Management Spring grant. Originally, this grant was for $2.96 million, and now they have agreed, the DEP and the district have agreed to help us with the final GMP 3 on the industrial park, and increase it to 6.319. This is just a draft. June 13th at 9 o'clock. It will be passed or be voted on by the district's board. It's on their consent agenda.
That's Tuesday, next Tuesday.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay.
But and then hopefully I can, if the board approves and Mr. Kirby and Mr. David approve, I'd like to walk this on the 15th for approval. from Board of County Commissioners.
We'll get it on the agenda. It just,
Yeah.
if they don't approve it, we'll pull it.
Yeah, right, okay. All right. And this, give us where's this money gonna be used? On the, treatment? What, treatment plant, make it up to park.
Yes.
Is it?
Final piece of the puzzle.
This will be GMP 3 which I hope to also have, once this comes, I'll put everything else onto the agenda for approval. Once I pass it to Mr. Kirby.
So since they updated this, what will that leave us in the deficit of financing the wastewater treatment plant at Mega Industrial Park?
Also on the
They should
picture,
fund the whole project, right?
So,
So we shouldn't have to borrow any money to fund the whole project.
part of the project is the money that the board talked about borrowing. The actual loan documents will be on the agenda for the board to decide on the 15th. You don't have to borrow the full amount, but you can borrow up to $8 million. It's kind of a bridge loan. 3 years, interest only, 5 years payback. Of course, you can refinance it once you get through the interest only, but 2.5% interest is well below market.
Yeah. So we're getting closer to basically a net zero on funding for that project at Mega Industrial Park.
minus $8 million loan, yes, sir.
Obviously, if we save money on the park, we won't borrow as much money. You don't have to borrow, that money is available.
Anybody have any questions on the water treatment plant at Industrial Park or we have the wastewater treatment plant? Questions on that? All right, let's give a update on the utility billing system. We've about got all the bugs worked out of that, I guess.
Here working, it's been it's been, as Mr. Kirby likes to say, a very laborious last couple of months. Working out all the bugs and getting all the quirks out of it. We will officially go live the 23rd, which is on a Saturday. When I say go live, we will not be involved. The back end IT people will handle it. I put all and move all our information to it, to where we move seamlessly through. Also, in conjunction with doing this, we have AMRs installed. And so now, not only did we do billing system, but the new billing system is going to automatically read with the new meters that we installed. So just last week we had classes on AMR and just kind of see how that was going to work, get the guys used to that particular technology. And it took about approximately 12 hours of meter reading, and it turned it into a 48-minute job. That's how fast it was reading.
So basically now you just turn the meter readings into the program and it does all the billing.
It'll download it. Currently right now, since it's not web-based, they'll be coming out with a web-based. Currently right now, what we do is the guys will meter read it, download it to SharePoint. Our IT and billing person will remove it from SharePoint, put it in Rostec, and it's done.
So in the past, you physically had to touch each meter, read the meter, record the meter reading, take it in, type it into the system. You had little meter reading devices.
Yep.
You had to physically touch each meter. Now it'll be radio read, so you don't have to physically touch each meter.
And so there should be a lot less room for error in this kind of system.
Well,
Because basically, ultimately, I just punch one wrong number in and you got a false reading.
yeah, absolutely. Plus, not just an error from a human standpoint, but it also helps us for leak detection and losses, because we can actually see our meter reads live time. And from a GIS, so to speak, standpoint, every time we take a meter read, it does a GPS point on every meter we have. So now we actually have a physical location definitive where we have meters at.
This system also, like if you got one meter that's way out of whack from the month before,
Absolutely.
it points that out.
Actually, you set the parameters and it'll tell you prior to the meter read. If it gets out of parameter, it'll send an alarm
maybe you can let somebody know they got a leak way before they lose 20,000 gallons of water. Something like that.
Yeah, so if hypothetically, let's say a residential meter, you've got on average 1 gallon per 2 hours is what the usage is.
Yeah.
But you set the parameter, if it's greater than 2 gallons per 2 hours, it'll send an alarm. You can set whatever parameter it is for commercial, residential, industrial setting.
Greg, those are these cellular readers or are they drive-by readers?
Currently, they're drive-by. Right now, they're drive-by readers. I'm also looking into getting a quote to put the tower where the cellular readers, where everything will be done in the office. And there will be, other than doing rereads or meter checks, though nobody will actually have to physically go out and.
I haven't seen the tower set up. I've seen it where it's almost like a utility box sitting out there on the side of the road that has a cellular.
Yeah, the new base, in fact, talking to Mr. Lawrence Wilson, he's communications for the county. Camora Hill would be a perfect location to put a modem up, and it would cover Ellisville, Mason City, and Fort White, radius wise. And it could feed it right back to Ms. Liz or Ms. Ellen in the office. And they could turn off and on meters and do meter reads automatically.
Well, the drive-by, you're driving by once a month, right?
Once a month, yeah, that's what I was talking about. So the manual meter reads were taking me somewhere in about 12 hours of labor time.
But with the cellular, what Stacy was talking about, the advantage to that is it can automatically flag. If something happens, if somebody busts the pipe and all of a sudden you see a lot of water flow, it can flag that immediately and then send out a notice to that property owner that, hey, you might want to check your system.
Eventually, that's what, like I said, once we get the web-based program and everything, that's what we'll be going to. But currently, as the drive-by system works, those guys are going to have it in their system and it'll actually send an alarm to their tablet. So with Robert and Kevin being in Fort White or in Ellisville, working in that area, they're always within earshot of the meters. So it'll work perfectly right now until we can upgrade.
If you're moved away, there should not be any human error in this whatsoever. It'd be strictly, if you got an error, it's gonna be in the software or in the meter itself.
Absolutely.
Legal sensors.
Right.
And they'll be compatible with the
Rostec billing system?
with the SCADA infrastructure.
Yes,
If,
absolutely. Yes, sir. In fact, Census is they actually have their own SCADA system. We wanted to utilize that, piggyback off of the.
I would think you had to, but I don't know, maybe they can be retro or converted. Compatibility done.
Sorry.
Since we're talking about Fort White water, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What did you say it was cutting over?
Thanks, sir.
If we're talking about Fort White water, where are we on the,
Saturday, the 23rd.
Yes.
where are we on the green sand and filtration?
Green sand and filtration. Green sand's on site. It's been on site for about 30 days now. Working with the Florida Rural Water Association to get my pilot permit for DEP. It was sent to DEP Tuesday for their approval. I sent the fee waiver form in as well Tuesday. So hopefully I should hear back from Mr. V at the DEP. As soon as I hear something, then I can start moving forward with utilizing the green sand the Codalock as a green sand replacement. It's in DEP's hands.
What we're trying to do is make sure, even though we know ultimately we're going to hook to Ellisville and pump water from a different area, this will help us improve the quality of water in Fort White using Fort White current wells. So that, you don't have to wait a year to get good water.
Plus it gives us an additional backup because of the water quality like it is. If something ever happens to Ellisville, you still want to have a backup, obviously.
So we know coming out of at least the one well, it still comes out brown, just because of where the well is located.
Yeah.
So this will help treat all that.
This was, Fort White's been battling this problem basically since we've had city water. I mean, the well was a problem from the very beginning.
It's just in a bad location.
Yeah, bad location. Great.
Yeah, the well was sit right next to a sinkhole.
Yeah.
There's that back on the west. Just another topic, as we get these water lines out into our more rural areas and still may have a problem with, I don't know if Stacy's, had any issues and we can provide feedback, but one thing I've experienced when they start getting these rural areas is you'll have water loss because the fire hydrants out there, it's not because the fire hydrants there, it's because landscaper contractor, he pulls up there and he's got the tools and equipment, he can open up the valve and he'll fill up the water tank. And you're losing water there, so you may want to look at, a security measure for that and then providing a well station where you actually get paid for that contractor using that water.
I have 2 spots in Fort White, both are hydrant metered, and that is our fill up location. Yes, sir. And we've already, in our tap, we currently now have hydrant taps with a key. That's one of the things, because exactly what you just stated happened to us one time here about 4 months ago. All of a sudden, you have 40,000 gallons of usage in the middle of a day, and it shouldn't have been there. So, and then you pull up and you got a tanker truck.
And it happens in Ellisville too.
Yes, sir.
So for instance, the racetrack will find you a meter in Ellisville. And you have now a meter on it. They'll fill up a truck to the water down the track.
City of Fort White at one time had the meters that you put on that you just went in.
Yes, sir. And
I've used them before.
yes, sir. And we've upgraded some more.
We used to fill up at the fire department for a while all the time, but we paid the town a flat fee per load.
Right.
Back when I was in the well drilling business.
And but a lot of
Got our
people,
well rig up there all the time.
a lot of people pull that dead end down there and hook to it and you don't even know they're there till you.
Yeah, I've seen water trucks hooked to them, but that's something we can definitely work on.
Getting that hydrant, it's kind of like getting a cat key.
Yes, sir, it is.
Did you get a free lunch out there?
This is true, but that has a tendency to mess up your chemicals, especially your overbud.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm happy with the progress you're making with the water in the Fort White area. I've had a lot less complaints here lately than what we used to get, and I know it's still a work in progress, but it's definitely an improvement now over what we had.
We're working diligently to try to correct any of the issues that we have in the process.
If they are, I know everybody in town of Fort White appreciates it. This has been a problem for Fort White 20 years, the water. I mean, it's been ignored to somewhat, kind of. Some people didn't want to recognize that there was a problem with the water, really. And it did meet testing standards and stuff, but still discoloration, when people look at it, it concerns people.
Well, I think to the point too, where we need to start looking at picking some of these dead ends. Or how they ton of dead ends.
Yeah, they have a pile.
You don't draw enough water out of it. You got to go and bleed it off to keep fresh water in there, and then that water off too. So if we can start leaking that out. That's out.
Already started looking into numerous ones. Yes, sir.
Utility position.
This is just, I just want to kind of, for info, we offered him a job about a week ago. Hopefully he accepts it, and in the next few weeks, we should have an additional employee in the utilities. Be a trainee position, work his way up.
Do you have any licensed operators on staff yet? Or B or C operators?
Yeah, Robert, wastewater C, Aaron Water C, Kevin's water C.
Oh, Kevin's certified.
Yeah, he's certified water C, and he's about 2/3 way done with his wastewater C. Just waiting on hours, 2,080 hours a year.
Good deal. Kevin, you got anything to add to that, or? The guy you hired, does he have any experience right now?
He's got some book experience, yeah.
He does have one. This pipe that we're running from Ellisville to Fort White is welding joints. Are we gonna be able to do anything in-house with any joint welding?
Not welding, no, sir. It'd be contracted
But
out.
all the fittings that we use to go to the
All our,
hydrants and stuff like that, they will be, we got wiring or,
the big compatible, and all our big joints, all our saddles, everything the guys can
so
do.
we'll be able to take it from the pipe to.
That's always been the debate, if you may. You know, if you're going modern way or the maintenance side of things, you simply cannot afford to be whipped, maintain that. That makes sense.
But really, we shouldn't have, unless we have to like cut a pipe or something like that, we shouldn't be dealing with that a whole lot. Because everything from the pipe to what we would be working with, the hydrants and the valves and stuff like that,
Absolutely.
we'll have stuff to work with that on.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That was a concern that somebody brought to my attention and I just wanted to be able to answer that question honestly, if you know, because, you know,
We discussed the other day at a board meeting, this modern technology with tractors and motorizers and whatnot like that. It's everything went this way. You know, everything's modern and it's more efficient and it's more cost friendly up front.
right.
But to tend to it, you gotta call them out of Jackson or a motor.
Well, I mean, you know,
So somebody cuts through the main line between there and there.
Well, contract out.
Well, it's like.
You're out of luck for many hours before anybody gets
We'll
water.
have contingency plans with contractors, I mean, like we do with anything else. Yes, sir. No, but to answer Mr. Ford's question, we will not be equipped in-house for on.
No, you can't be.
Right. Well, you can do
Well,
it.
yeah, but
Cost efficient.
then by the time you hire the people that can do it and are certified to do it,
Obviously, we'll have a contract with the company.
And all that kind of. You start at, the county couldn't have. Next, you want to contract one.
I refer to the main line infrastructure.
basically we can do everything but weld joint phase. We won't have the welding capability. Yes.
And financially, that makes sense.
Right.
You have the saddle splashes though, 'cause
Absolutely.
if it was punctured, you could, yeah.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be down for an extended period of time. It would be.
You can patch where.
Like repair clamps, you mean?
Yes. And then once we got a hold of the contractor, we could set up a time. And
Shut it down.
shut it down, middle of the day when people are not at the house, instead of it being in the middle of the night in an emergency situation.
Jay, y'all have anything
that'll
else?
affect your fire and everything else.
Everything.
Sure. I don't know if you want to talk about our meeting from the other day, but
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit. So the other day, we did have a meeting with some of the surrounding counties.
And down below.
In county, yeah. Well, yeah, everybody is involved now with the president, as far as the town officials. Well, I think the council, Connie was there, mayor was there. But what we discussing with some of the counties around counties, Swanee County, Union County, Baker County, Hamilton County. Am I leaving any out? One of Baker. Anyway, at the end of the day, a lot of these places, communities are going to, regional utilities as far as 2 or 3 or 4 different municipalities joining together to make a utility. Right now, Trenton, High Springs and Archer, right?
I think Newberry.
Newberry. They're in the process of looking at doing this same thing right now as far as the regional utility, for that area there. And, we had some discussion with some of the surrounding counties, about maybe looking into doing that, locally here with the utility. And, I mean, everybody, you look at the cost of what a utility costs to run. And how much it costs to get the infrastructure in place. So Swanee County and the surrounding counties, they're in the same boat everybody else is in financially, trying to get infrastructure in place and stuff like that. And Tallahassee is even kind of behind these regional utilities for like counties banding together and doing it. And it's not really a new concept, not real new, I guess. There've been several, Okeechobee's done it, with some of their surrounding counties. I think, our attorney represented, Clay County, we're doing it with a regional utility.
We've got a little bit of Duval and we've got some of Bradford.
So, it's just a concept that we're looking into and exploring. We had a meeting the other day. Most of the counties was here except for Union and Hamilton. They had commitments, prior commitments they couldn't get out of. But, everyone seemed to be on board with looking into this and, explore this opportunity to try to do this. Because you can create, do you want to speak on this a little bit, what advantages is to doing this or?
The biggest advantage is you can cross, artificial lines and provide service to the people and the businesses, where they are. The other thing is, to an extent, you can arguably take some of the politics out of the growth of your utility and the provision of service in the future. And you're having a growth spurt, who's going to get the lines first, who's going to get the service first. You can make a utility and a business-based decision versus, this political group saying that this is going to be the way it's going to go. So there are pros and cons in the particular utility that I've served since '94. The governor appoints one supervisor, the other supervisors are appointed by the Board of County Commission for Clay County, and then Duval County's tacked on those just a little bit near 295 off of Landing by act of the legislature, and Bradford County is an interlocal agreement with us primarily for the greater Keystone Heights area. But if you had multiple counties involved, presumably your Board of County Commissioners from those counties would want some representation on your utility board.
And one of the pros is it's a standalone utility, so it's not depending on the county to fund it. It's
That's correct. I mean, and don't get excited, but if it's done right, you should be able to pay some money back to your counties in lieu of taxes. Okay, so you'd be having your own infrastructure, your own financing, your own staff, your own board, your own liability, your own insurance, your own employees, so on and so forth.
So like I say, that's just something that we are in the process of exploring. And we do have another meeting scheduled for July 12th, is that correct? For July 12th. It will be advertised meeting and anybody's welcome to attend. So,
Again, we want the town of Fort White
Yeah.
as a partner at the table.
One other advantage that we see is you got increased purchasing power whenever you can increase the size of that. And you can also have set standards so that Columbia County's got the same fire hydrant that Swanee County's got, that Hamilton County's got. So if you got to replace one, everybody don't have to stock one of their own. You can stock one and you got a replacement that you can work between all the member agencies and all that.
right now, the way it's set up, we did with Swanee County, Columbia County, other county, the county is incurring all the costs, trying to raise all the money for each individual county, where if you had a utility doing it, a standalone utility, you're not really getting the budget for the county to be able to operate involved in the funding of the utility. It's a standalone, and they would raise their own money through bonds and grants and stuff like that. So
Quite frankly, we've been a small utility for a long time, whereas we don't have a lot of replacement parts. So a motor goes out, a blower goes out, pump goes out. If it's a 16-week lead time or longer, we just can't go up to the shelf and grab one off of it. We have to try and find one somewhere.
I agree with that.
Parts and maintenance is a huge issue.
And that would be one of the big advantages. If you formed a utility, everybody would operate with the same material. So you could stock material for 5 counties instead of just each county having tried to stock their own. Because even trying to stock pumps, some of these pumps, $100,000, $150,000. I mean, you know, it just makes sense, you know. And I'm gonna tell you, you got, Baker County was here the other day. They're involved in a regional landfill with 2 or 3 counties. I mean, and they couldn't, I mean, they used to talk about how well it works. I mean, it just, they works great for them. Some other counties are involved in regional. Because one of the biggest expenses for most counties is the landfill, the jail, the utility. That's the three biggest. I mean, we know for a fact, we just spent about $17 million on a pod system for our jail. Wasn't even a complete jail. So, you know, Gilchrist County's in a pickle right now with their jail. I mean, they're over, too many people can't build the jail. I mean, it's, I guess what I'm saying, these counties are gonna have to start banding together with working one of these big issue items like this.
It also helps with your disaster relief. About 20 of our employees went down to Sanibel Island, and we do stock a lot of parts, and we were able to get much of their infrastructure up and running by our guys contributing the time and having the parts on the truck versus having to order them. So you're right, if you can centralize that, that gives you an economy of scale.
Like I say, it's something we're exploring, looking into right now, and everybody at the meeting was very positive about it. I mean, they all like the idea of banding together for this utilities, and most of them expressed concerns about even going further, you know, with landfills and jails and stuff like that also. So, yeah. I think that is really part of the future that we're gonna have to look into and start planning for that. So. But got any add? I mean, anybody else got anything to add to it? I thought it was a very good meeting, and like I said, everybody there was want to be involved in it. So. And then, have you got anything else to add to the meeting? No more questions? Anything?
Y'all talked last month about the school board wanting to get out of the utility business and what might be the end game for the wastewater plant down in Fort White. Has there been any discussion, development on, any thoughts on that?
Yes.
It can be shared inside your head.
So there have been discussions with the school district and some of the county staff to figure out what would it take, what would be involved. Realistically, the school district has 4 schools that have their own sewer systems. Only one of which would involve the county. That would be the one in Fort White. The other 3, I think it was 3 or 4. 3. Columbia City, Pine Mountain, and
West Side.
West Side. That would all have to be a project between school district and the city because it would have to tie into the city sewer because we have no system out for any of those particular
What
schools.
about Columbia City Elementary?
That would be too far of a run to run it to Fort White.
What? Okay. They have their own, they have a little
Right,
package.
they have their own plan.
Yeah.
So if they were to abandon that plant, it would have to run up to the interchange, which is where the city sewer is.
Right.
So that's why I say if even Columbia City would be a project with the city, not necessarily with the county. There is interest in Fort White for development. We could use the capacity for that development to speed it up and not have to wait on whatever the timetable is on the Fort White sewer, which of course, we've not had an active role in the Fort White sewer, not even on our agenda, so we don't know what the standing is. You could probably update us on that. So that would be a way to get this development to start now, prior to the Fort White sewer being able to be built and put in place. if this development is in a hurry to develop. And that a lot depends on what the town wants. But we just try to figure out what's out there, what's not out there, and how much capacity there is.
Well, the school board's always wanting to get out of business. Question is, what's the ask and what's the offer?
Well, and I don't know that we know the answer to that, other than what I was told is if you take one, you take them all, but that's not a viable plan.
And we've not heard that officially.
Right. Oh, is that, you not have? That's not
For
fit.
clarification, yes, sir.
Okay.
All we've done is talk about what would it take to hook them to what was available. Now we have dollar amounts, what it would take to hook. Now it's, you gotta get everybody in the same room talking out. But again, 3 of those systems involve the county.
It's gotta be a good deal for the school board, it's gotta be a good deal for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gotta be a good deal for both.
To me, you just run the numbers and what's wrong with the county taking all of them and operating the plants and contracting out, figuring out what the cost is, and as long as the school board pays for the cost, if our cost is less.
Greg, and once again, Mr. Chair, none of this is official. I've been told there are problems with 3 of the 4 locations.
Okay.
So I think the bottom line is the right people have not got together yet to clarify exactly what is the deal. Right. So if we're going to buy a house, let's get an efficiency list and see what it takes to bring the house under compliance.
Okay.
There's a lot of barroom talk today.
And if there's any capacity, and the next question is, if there is capacity for any expansion, as far as if anything did want to hook. Because in some of these locations, it's pretty remote, really. I mean, if you talk about, the west side over there's, if any growth was there right now, it'd be residential. And, how much capacity would you have to hook through that residential growth? Right? And like I say, I agree with Kevin. You got, and you, both of y'all really, you got to sit down and look at what would be the advantages and the disadvantages to it. And if there is any root, if there any growth to it, can you add to the plant if you wanted to? Is the city gonna give us the property the plant's on, or the school, gonna give us this plant, our property the plant's on for expansion, or
The one thing we know, if we can temporarily use the one foot line, that opens the door up immediately. That's one
is that?
thing we're positive.
There is.
And the only one that opens it up immediately.
Exactly. And there is interest in that plant for growth in Fort White right now. But we can't make an offer till we nail down a deal.
We've never looked at the option of, we just keep the plants as they are and we operate. That's not been one of the discussions. I think that's what Greg was getting at, was we become a contract operator for the county, for the school district. And we've never discussed it. That's never been on the table.
No, and that's what I say, that might be something we need to explore. Dale, go ahead.
Rocky, years ago, different county administration, different school administration. But in return for Fort White, what the school board asked is that the county take it, the county operate it. But in return for gifting it, the school wanted to remain a participant on the system at no cost. That's what they were asking for under different administration years ago.
That really won't work. That don't work.
Don't worry.
No, that don't work.
That was the ask, and that's the reason the deal was never done, all that.
I think they got off of that. I mean, be talking to, some of the schools.
And it was different people back.
Yeah, I think they realize now that they're gonna have to be a payer on the facility that works for everybody.
If Mr. Ford, I would recommend, if we have a meeting coming up in Fort White, and there's several issues on the table. David and I were talking, we thought it would be just courteous to let that meeting come to make sure our partner in Fort White were very aware of everything, or even on the table, before we even move forward, if they were on board for any of our considerations.
Yeah.
We won't leave it in the dark.
Yeah, no, we need to keep them fully informed.
Maybe opposed to it.
So I'll just be frank, when I walked into that meeting, I got sticker shock. I didn't know what in the world we were talking about. With all the contingencies suggested along with what White too. Ricky,
You're talking about the system before White School, right?
everything with the system for White,
Yeah.
other three locations.
Right.
Ricky, you could probably talk about anything else in the world with those staff. Where's the world? I'm just kidding with you. Well, I think we'll have a lot more information about next one, which
And if you do the Fort White system, at what point does it tie into the system that you guys are working at for Fort White, not for us?
Yeah, I was
On the sewer system, we've not asked you about it and not really pushed on it because we figured that's between you and the town.
well,
But obviously this would figure into that equation.
I think on the next agenda, the Fort White wastewater should be on the next agenda, and let's get an update where we're at. Because we do have funding, we have grant funding for that,
Fort White,
for Fort White. Yes,
that's why we want to be courteous.
yes.
ultimately, it's their project.
Right.
They've not invited us into the project, which is fine. But we don't want to overstep.
The system as it's right now is plants going on the south side of town, pump stations are gonna be configured to pump to the south side of town. Typically, whenever you acquire something like this, you're gonna operate as a wastewater plant, and at some point, you're gonna convert it to a pump station.
Right.
The only difference is there's no plan right now to utilize that facility whatsoever. So if it's gonna be figured in the mix, if decisions need to be made, I mean, we can continue on what we're doing and if it's not on the table.
That's kind of what Kevin was saying is, let's get the town involved and put it on the table.
But if it does become to be something that's potentially on the table, then it could change the design we're working on.
So it's our understanding, they're only using roughly 25% of the capacity of the current plant, which is 75% of the vacancy. But our opinion was, what we told the staff with that meeting a couple of days ago is ultimately the sewer plant, sewer system is the town's project right now. We don't want to walk in there like the bulls of China closet without at least, let's have an open conversation with them.
And having said that, the other part of this conversation, administratively, we're the Columbia Fort White utility. The Columbia Fort White utility does not include wastewater system in Fort White. Is that correct?
At this point,
That's not part of the combined utility. Right now, that's still Fort White, maybe by themselves.
Which leads to the comment, we want to make sure we don't overstep our bounds.
Well, I thought
That's a question.
you done, including water, wastewater, and water.
well, it does, but we don't want to overstep our bounds with the town of Fort White. If they want us to participate in their sewer project, we're happy to do it. But we don't want to go to the town of Fort White and say, we're taking over your project. So it's got to be, the town of Fort White wants us to participate.
For the wastewater side, it seems like we're straddling the fence along there. I'm just gonna be kind of blunt, but, it seems like the parties are not on the same page there.
Well, and that's why we need to have a conversation with the town.
It's growing pains. Growing pains.
Yeah, I'm sitting here confused at this point right now. Y'all get throw me for a loop here. I thought we had an agreement with the town of Fort White, that we have a interlocal agreement for water and sewer.
We do.
Yeah. So where,
The grants are the town's grants.
I understand that. But some of the money gets in the. I just guess I didn't take it that the county or the town. I thought we were both involved with this together. Anybody we got grant funded went for the projects, no matter if it was county money or Fort White money. I guess.
You're exactly right. Mr. Ford, I think the idea was in the spirit of partnership. We don't want to do anything without conversing with them to make sure they're in the know.
So. I guess. I understand where you're at, but I thought this was several years ago, a year or two ago,
Well, that was.
I didn't know this was still I didn't know this was an issue.
It's not.
Yeah.
We don't want to make it.
Right.
We don't want to make it.
Kevin,
We don't want to bring the problem.
Right.
There's no reason.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason.
which this is just be a minute between the regional.
Right.
So,
So we just need commitment from town of Fort White, what you're saying.
We need to have a
And they're on board with
We need to
you.
have a conversation with them.
It's not a commitment, we just need to have that
Hey,
conversation.
guys, we're thinking about this. Do y'all think that's a good idea? Sure. Okay. If we're partners, we need to communicate. We just did not feel, and when I say we, David and I, we did not feel comfortable moving forward with any type of negotiations with the school board without at least bringing our partners on board to communicate what we're conversing about.
I understand that. And I think they should be part of it.
With this conversation.
I guess what I would say though, they have to be at the meetings and be part of the conversation, so. You know,
So we'll set up a meeting with you. This conversation.
I mean, you can't talk to people that they're not there to talk to.
Yes,
We're good.
we're good. Everything's good.
Maybe you're gonna get on their agenda, the town meeting of the.
I guess I should ask if you guys want to come to that town meeting and give them a date at the same time.
Yeah, I think somebody from North Florida should be there. If they have any questions, whether.
He goes, I think, but I'm happy to go as well.
Whoever you guys think, you know, if we're gonna,
The next meeting that you can get on the agenda.
we'll get a whole county and I'm guessing it's what, third Monday of the month? I believe it's third Monday of the month. Right, when their meetings are?
Third Monday of each month, yeah, what I'm saying. They've got a meeting, they've got a meeting coming up. Actually,
The end of June, middle, third of
19th of this month.
So you said 19?
Yeah, 19th, June 19th.
how many employees do we have
Okay.
for the utility system?
Or,
Myself, and I just hired another one, so 4 total.
yeah, before that, but
And that doesn't include admin or anything.
No.
He's providing.
We currently do provide, it's just not official. We have an admin person to the city. Yes.
So we've got one person.
Liz is now, they should.
So you've got, because of the, for financial accounting purposes, Ellen does all the billing,
Mhm.
Liz does all the collection.
So we have two and basically have two that works on it
Right.
part-time. They do other.
That way the person doing the billing isn't taking the money, and the person taking the money isn't doing the.
Four full-time, two part-time.
And
That doesn't count Patrick working on the computers and doing the transition into the new billing system.
For IT work on everything, so.
have they developed their budget yet, or are they still operating out of
Yeah,
county?
it's not, you have a budget.
It's not been approved yet, but it's been submitted.
Basically, the budget will go into effect October the 1st of next year. He'll have his own budget.
If I may,
Go ahead.
so a couple of weeks ago, all department heads, inclusive of utilities, did in a perfect world, if you may, presentation of BOCC. In a perfect world, this is what I would like my budget to look like. We do not know what our revenues are at this time. So we do that once a year at the department head level in front of the board. And then somewhere in July, when David gets all his revenues in, he calculates exactly where his money's at, then it becomes putting the eggs in the hole, if you may.
Mhm.
So and Stacy certainly could present that to this board if you'd like to see it.
I was just,
It's easy enough, bring next time. It's already,
Put it on the next
Yeah.
agenda.
well, it's already there.
A couple weeks ago, I presented it to the commission.
We'll bring it next time. Once again, that, what he presented is, in a perfect world, this is what it'll take operating.
and the ad valorem taxes, are they separated out into,
So what happens with ad valorem taxes is the 1st of July is when the property appraiser has to certify the tax roll.
Mhm.
Until until the tax rolls are certified, it's just a shot in the dark. So that's why we say in July, August, that's when you start putting together your revenue picture. And once you put together your revenue picture, then you go back to what everyone's asked for and said, what can we afford, what can we not afford? How do we fund what's necessary and what's not?
In your late term, you and your wife decide you want to spend $100,000 on this and that, and this and that this year. But you really don't know what you're getting July 1st, right? Once you get your check in, you say, okay, now what we're really going to do.
And unlike the federal
I
government,
appreciate that, Cody. I got the gist of it.
and unlike the federal government, our budget
Has to be balanced.
has to be.
Well, my question was, how many towns is the tax, is it divided like between? Ellisville is not incorporated, so
When it
how
comes,
many towns do you have in Columbia County?
when it comes to property,
What?
property tax,
Select Saville, tax in the city of Lake City.
so when it comes to the ad valorem taxes, each entity assesses their own ad valorem tax. So we have a tax, a millage rate that we charge. The City has a millage rate they charge. The hospital authority has a millage rate they charge. School board has a millage rate they charge. And your final tax bill is a combination of everybody's added together. And then on top of that, you got your fire assessment, your solid waste assessment, any other assessments that are out there if you live in a subdivision and has street light assessment or street assessment. MSBU.
As far as ad valorem,
But our ad valorem collection isn't split with anybody else. It's our ad. So the city of Lake City has their own ad valorem assessment. Town of Fort White does not have an ad.
Charge, yes.
If they wanted one, they would have to put one in place.
And the utility board at some point in the future is not going to start charging a millage.
It would not be an ad valorem. It would be a user fee. So they would base it on their rate structure.
so basically if you were hooked to the water or sewer, you would be billed for that. It wouldn't be a tax, but
Create what they call an MSPU or a benefit unit for improvements. And so if you wanted to run sewer lines in a subdivision, you could put an MSBU on that subdivision, and that subdivision would pay for those improvements. And that's kind of what we're looking at with the
you make it.
industrial park, is making it an MSBU or an MSPU. The difference is whether it's an assessment or a tax. But it would be just for that specific geographic area. And it would be in addition to regular millage.
But David, most utilities, if there's water and sewer available, instead of doing MFBU, they have that developer that's doing that subdivision, run the water and sewer and connect to the system.
Correct.
And then you just do a user fee. You don't do an MFBU for that subdivision.
Right, when they tie in, they would pay a capacity fee and a connection.
Right, that,
And then whoever uses the water or sewer would pay per gallon. But typically utilities are funded off of user fees.
and out of that user
That's
fee-
not been my experience, but interesting. I know we never had these conversations. It's always about other stuff, but at some point in time, unless y'all have them behind closed doors, you got to get back down to down there next to the bone where the meat's a little sweeter and figure all this stuff out.
You will have to figure out what rates you have to charge to be able to finance your expenditures.
Well, it gets back to that comprehensive outlook.
Yep.
You got to know somewhat know what you're expecting in the future before you can plan for it, don't you?
You do. You're absolutely correct.
I get lucky every once in a while. I got this again.
Anything else? Anybody, anything else? Greg, have anything else to add? No. Make a motion to adjourn? Thank everybody for being